guys,
Welcome back.
to yet another meditation with Jack and Scott.
It
This is what, number 4 now?
is.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
We're still here.
Let's just make sure that we're actually live.
Yeah, let's do that.
would be
And as we're doing that, for anyone, if there is anybody there, just like get yourself set up, get your space set up, turn the TV off.
Yeah, get yourselves all nice and comfy. Make sure you've got everything you need, which won't be a whole lot, to be honest. And hang on a minute, let's make sure I'm ready too.
Okay, it looks like we are good.
Cool. Just give everyone like a couple of minutes to join. How are you feeling today, Scott, by the way?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I had a great day.
Great.
Nice to have some sunshine back after a few colder, windier days.
Yeah, oh man, it was gorgeous, wasn't it? It was real nice.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, got to spend a bit of time at the park today.
Beautiful.
Schmick. Cool. Thanks, Ninj. All right. Well, with that, we've got the boss's approval.
Beautiful.
Let's jump into it, shall we?
Yeah. So, as we get into our first meditation, before we get started, I guess our theme for today is acceptance.
Yes.
Feels like a little bit of a relevant theme considering some of the events of the week.
Yeah.
And so, with this first meditation, as always, this is about exploration, and you can bring any practice, any ideas that you want to it. But if you are wanting some inspiration, feel free to bring acceptance to the front. Try really focusing on just accept whatever happens, whether your mind is going to run around like crazy, or you notice any sort of uncomfortable sensations. Just accept whatever comes up, accept it as it happens. And yeah, we're going to obviously unpack this a lot more over the next half hour or so, but maybe bring that in right from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Prue says perfect theme. I just saw. Thanks, Prue.
Thanks, Pro.
Yeah, this will be. Let's see what happens, shall we?
Yeah, so let's do it. So let's set that timer.
Yeah, I'll take it off. We have a 20-minute time. I'll take it off that. 7 minutes. Be nice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 7 minutes again.
All right. We'll see you in 7 minutes, guys. spine pops there just to
Yeah.
wrap things up. It's always nice. All right. So acceptance, huh?
Yeah, acceptance.
That's where we're going today. We had a few ideas that we were going to kind of roll with on this. It was actually quite interesting, like the discussion, like kind of like picking up ideas and dropping them and figuring out what was going on.
Yeah, we've gone through a couple
Like,
little.
We can do all of these things.
Situations.
Yeah, let's put like most of that to the side. Because I don't know, especially like you were saying before, this is like a really relevant topic at the moment. Acceptance is because there's we both, as you probably all know, we both live in Melbourne. There's been all kinds of things going on, everything from protests to earthquakes, in fact. Which has been pretty intense. Yeah, so and like of course, you know, being in lockdown for way longer than anyone ever expected. I think at this point.
I think that's it. The last 18 months has been the ultimate exercise in finding new things to try to accept. I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling that way.
Yeah, definitely not, man. Definitely not. So the first idea we were going to roll with was this idea of like refusal. What happens when you don't accept things? When you refuse to accept what's happening or what's going on? What that looks like and what happens when you do that?
Yeah, and so like I guess one of the things when looking at this, right, and whether we refusal is this word that we looked at, but we wrote down. But I was thinking about this earlier, even it crossed my mind as we were sitting here. It's not necessarily that one is refusing; it's when we're unable to. You know, so often we don't even have a choice. Something happens and it's not what we want, and then like it bothers us. And I think that this thing is when we can't accept things, it's hard, it's difficult, and sometimes it makes us angry or frustrated or anxious or like fill the blanks in all sorts of different ways with whatever the emotional experience is for you. But when things come our way that we don't want, that aren't what we were planning,
or that we just don't want to happen.
We either can accept that and then work with it, or often we don't know how to. When we can't do that, then we have to deal with these difficult feelings and it's uncomfortable and it's unbalancing.
Yeah. Very destabilizing, right? It's it can be like super confronting as well, of course. Like you were saying, there's all kinds of unpleasant things that come along with it. I don't know, I think I can very much relate to this. There's been a whole bunch of stuff, like you were saying, that I've had to learn to accept over the last a little while. And one of the particular ones being like sitting with uncomfortable emotions. Like there are a lot of like all kinds of things come up in day-to-day life, as I'm sure like everyone experiences, right? Where it's just you just don't want to be, you just don't want it to be going on.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be. It makes you angry, upset, frustrated, whatever. And on you go.
Yeah, and I think that when these things come up, right, whatever they are, if we're unable to accept something that's happening, then the only other option we have is to fight it, really, or run away from it, I suppose. You know.
Yeah, it's like beating your head against the wall sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I think sometimes, and I guess this is even important to point, is that sometimes fighting is important, you know? It has its place. Sometimes something is really bad and you need to do something about it. And so that's okay, but often often there is an option to find acceptance, to make peace with something that's happening.
Yeah.
Which then allows a much easier, right, a much smoother way to navigate.
Yeah.
To sort of navigate a situation.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because when you're stuck in those, places, everything just seems a lot harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you're kind of like pushing out against the world,
Mm-hmm.
and as you do that, it's kind of the more it's often I find in my experience it's often like the harder you push,
Mm-hmm.
the harder the world pushes back.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's like I don't know. I think the example that's coming to mind in particular is in the past when I've been trying to get someone else to see or accept my point of view, and they're just not, and I'm really insistent on it. And like just like if you would just see it my way, everything would be like totally fine, right? And all of your problems would disappear, right? And especially like giving advice, which is something that we can like kind of like as therapists relate to a lot. Sometimes you're like, oh, I know the answer. If you just accept my answer, then all of your problems will be solved. But that's often just not the case, and it kind of creates more resistance as well. Particularly when you're like interacting with other human beings, because of course, like no one likes to be told that they're like wrong or that the way they're looking at things isn't working, right? Like even if it's not, and they know it's not, like that's just kind of beside the point.
Yeah.
But like coincidentally, often as soon as you try and I don't know if you guys have had any experience with this, but I think you said you might have as well. What I've found really interesting about that is often as soon as I stop trying to make someone accept something, including myself, as soon as I stop trying to force myself to accept something, it generally just like goes away and suddenly, it's all fine.
Yeah.
It's a really weird thing. It's a really weird thing.
Yeah, no, that does resonate with me. I definitely feel I've had these experiences as well of, trying to push something and finally going like, you know what, fine. If I can't achieve this, I can't achieve it. And often that thing that I was trying to achieve starts to fall into place of its own accord. Which kind of leads us straight into talking about like the experience of what it's like when we are easily able to accept things, because it brings us towards much more ease. This is the word and the idea that we settled on. It's obviously a lot of different elements and positives that come from being able to accept things, particularly things that happen that are outside of our control, right? Because that's a central part of what, if something's outside of our control, better to accept it. That it allows for much more ease in the way that we go about things, because we no longer have to fight, and we're no longer using so much energy. We're no longer exhausted because we haven't been just like boiling in like the frustration and the anger of the thing that's happening, and then trying to get stuff done on top of it. Instead, it's like, cool, well, that's the way it is. You can put that aside, calm, settled, balanced, and then refocus on the things that we can achieve.
Yeah, and I think especially in terms of, it's just kind of my mind's automatically bringing this back to interactions with people, right? It's like, as soon as you stop trying to like change someone's way of seeing things, you can focus on the fact that you're connecting with a human being. And all of a sudden, that connection is there again. You're not fighting each other, and often that change that you were wanting to see either happens or a different one happens that is better than what the one you were trying to make happen in the first place. At least it's better for the other person, which, if it's someone you actually care about, which hopefully it is, otherwise you wouldn't be talking to them, then that's probably what you want, arguably.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Intention fulfilled, effortlessly.
Yeah. And so I guess this bringing it towards this place of ease is, well, I hope everyone would agree to say that ease is better than fighting and difficult, right?
Yeah.
That's we take that one for granted.
Yeah.
And I suppose this one other idea that we sort of wanted to address a little bit, and it's one that I've noticed in conversation like this with people in the past, is that sometimes people have like a fear that acceptance leads to sort of like inaction and nothing happening, because, well, the world has problems and I can't just accept everything because the world isn't perfect, so it's not worthy of my acceptance. And I think one of the things that's key, that's really key with me, I suppose, with my relationship with this idea of acceptance, is understanding that by accepting things the way that they are, it doesn't mean that I'm accepting that they always have to be that way. Because I may not be able to do something to change a certain thing that I don't like, but if I can accept it, then I can use my energy to change something that I can. So I can have a greater output in the world, and I can do more if I'm able to practice acceptance, so that then I can focus my energies in places where I can make an active achievement, where I can have some real output, rather than using a lot of energy up fighting the things that I can't.
Yeah, I like that a lot, man. That's a really good way of putting it. I think it was like what's coming back to mind is something we talked about before as well. It's like there are like pretty much in every circumstance there are going to be like parameters under which you have to operate, right? Like, so for example, if you're going to work, you have to dress appropriately, for example, and you can either like accept that and dress appropriately and then go and then you can do your job, or you can spend all of your time complaining about, but I want to wear yellow, right? Like, I want to wear yellow to work. And like, I can do that if I want, and I can spend all of this energy being frustrated about the fact that my shirt is purple, not yellow. But ultimately that's just taking away energy that I could be using to actually do the thing that I'm here to do. And I guess like similarly, like I guess like with like the lockdown situation that we're finding ourselves in Melbourne at the moment, it's like yes, like it yes it sucks, and yes it would be better if that wasn't the case. But it kind of is, and so we do have like these restrictions that we're forced to work, that we're kind of like in a position where we kind of have to work within those. But like by accepting them, you're not necessarily, I guess it kind of comes back to, you're not necessarily saying that it's okay and that you are okay with it, but shifting your focus off like trying to push the walls out from around you lets you actually do all of the things that you actually have the space within that room for. I guess like the thing that's coming to mind is it's like trying to make your bedroom bigger by pushing the walls over. Like, it's not like you can try
really that. Good. I love that analogy.
Okay, cool.
I like that a lot.
Thanks, man. Wasn't sure how that was going to go. You never know, right?
That one was not prepared before this. That's the first time I've heard it.
But yeah, and I guess with like the fear of accepting things as well, it's it can be scary. It can actually be really scary. Like looking at something that's really uncomfortable and saying, it can be really hard to say that like, I'm just going to accept this for what it is, because it can feel like kind of giving up your power sometimes, I think. Or at least we tend, I think that's where a lot of that fear comes from, at least for me. It's like, if I accept this, then I'm giving away my power. Which is not something I'm personally very fond of doing.
And I think that it's a really good point, because in actuality, in truth, once you do manage to accept it and let it go, you get more power. Right?
Because you free up all of that energy that you were holding in fear. I like this like kind of analogy that we were using before of like, there's you kind of end up either like pushing out or like pulling back internally, and either way that creates a tension between you and the world. When you're like resisting something, whether that's because it's something unpleasant you don't want to accept, or because you're afraid of what the implications of that will be for you or your life. But either way, it kind of takes you out of this place of ease. And it just makes things more difficult. Which I guess, like, bringing it back to meditation, that's kind of what the whole point is a lot of the time. It's just notice what the sensations are that are happening and just accept them. You can just allow them to be there.
Yeah, because I guess and that's one of the things, as we do start to bring it back more to talk about meditation, that meditation is in contrast to everything else that we do, where everything else we're doing this a purpose, like, you know, an external purpose. And obviously we have purposes when we meditate, but whilst we're sitting on the cushion or the seat, or we're lying down, wherever we choose to sit, we're not actively doing anything. So our actual task is merely to accept everything that happens. So it's like practicing acceptance is kind of one of the key things that we're doing whenever we sit down to meditate. So it's very central to our practice.
Yeah.
And so like I think that's one thing that as you do meditate, if acceptance is something you would like to get better at, and I think this is something we may have touched on this a little bit, but like you can push the way that your practice works and the way that you focus your attention, your energies when you're practicing, depending on what mental qualities you want to cultivate. And in terms of acceptance, I think it's kind of quite clear. It's clearer than it is with maybe some others, that like if I was to sit here and if we go back a couple of weeks when we're talking about developing concentration and say, I'm going to focus as hard as I can on bringing my attention to my breathing at my nose or my belly, and I'm going to keep it there as focused as I can. I'm going to develop concentration, but I'm not going to develop my acceptance nearly as well as if I sit here and say, okay, I'm gonna focus on my breathing, but I'm gonna be pretty chilled about it, and I'm just gonna really focus on accepting as much as I can whatever happens this time while I sit down. And if I take that approach, that's a little bit easier on myself, in terms of, you know, trying to stick with it, and I just really focus on accepting whatever happens, I'm gonna cultivate this mental quality and become more accepting of events that happen outside in the outside world as well, because this is the quality of mind that I'm focusing on whilst I sit.
Yeah, I like that a lot, man. It's actually just kind of brought something back into my mind that one of my teachers told me quite a while ago. Was basically that, like in a nutshell, was life or this or whatever you're doing can be as easy as you allow it to be. If you choose to, like, if you choose to resist, or if you choose to like buy into resistance, or if you choose to like not to accept certain things, then that's okay. That's totally fine. You can totally go through life doing that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you can also really like just let things be easy if you want them to, and this is a huge part of how you do that, is by just accepting what's there. And it's really remarkable how quickly things can shift when you just accept them for what they are.
Yeah. And maybe this is one last thought. Maybe then after this we'll get into our second meditation, is especially in relation to the events that are happening in Melbourne this week. The way that I've experienced like meditation and acceptance, this is an idea that occurred to me while we were meditating before, is that if I was to put my experience of meditation on top of someone who's going to our daily protests in Melbourne right now, and so this is the way that I've experienced it. So others may experience it differently, but if I was to say that if I was to meditate and have the experiences I've had in my practice whilst going to these protests each and every day, and let's say they go on forever, that each day spending a certain amount of time sitting, meditating, bringing awareness to my experience and accepting everything that happens, what that's going to do each day is bring that acceptance and that calmness to that person who's going to these protests. And so each day as they're going, they're gonna experience things a little bit differently, and they're gonna start to, like, as they have each day's experience and then process it and go through this experience and this process of accepting that will help them to see it with different perspective. But the outcome of it, I think this is what's important. this is what I'm trying to explain, is that may make them come to the point of accepting what's happening in Melbourne and not wanting to protest anymore. But it may also bring them to a place of greater clarity in what they're seeing, so that they can be more effective in what they're doing, so they can spread the message that they feel is really important. Because right now, a lot of people who aren't protesting are saying, well, we're accepting this lockdown. And the people who are saying, well, we're not. We don't think anyone should. But by practicing acceptance, if they focus on this practice, it may strengthen that resolve, and they may get more in touch with themselves and realize, actually, yes, I do believe in this, and it's going to allow them to bring more energy to what they're doing, and so that's going to allow them to bring more energy to that, to this protest. And the reason I'm bringing this up is to I'm trying to articulate this idea that we're saying before, that like, yeah, as you focus on it, in the idea behind it is to say you would accept things and you wouldn't go on a protest, but it may actually just give you more energy in saying, this is the thing that I feel is where all my energy needs to go right now, and I'm going to cultivate more of it. And as I bring my awareness in, as I focus inside, that's just going to strengthen my ability to do that. And so it's almost a counterintuitive thing that the practice of acceptance can make you the most effective person at going out into the world and achieving a result.
Yeah, I really like that, man, especially with the clarity, because I think and I think that's right. That's a huge part of it. Is like, acceptance is not like, oh, I accept the way things are, so now they're going to work out the way that I want them to.
Yeah.
It's acceptance, like, I accept things the way they are, and whatever happens next is also okay. And it's kind of like what you were saying about clarity really like struck me. It kind of reminds me of something I heard the other day, where it's like, and especially when it comes back to like bringing it back to like you're having a day of meditating, or just a day in general where your mind is just racing. It's like not accepting things is kind of like standing in front of a pond that has wind blowing over it, and the surface is all choppy, and trying to flatten that surface with an iron. It's just going to make things rougher and choppier, and it's only going to start. The pond will only clear when you accept that there are waves there for the moment, and then you can see through it. Yeah, I think that's all I really have to add to that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know. Hopefully that's interesting.
I like it.
Thanks, man.
I like it.
I'm very, like we were saying before, the way my mind is going today is it's very like abstract metaphors. That's just what I'm rolling with today, apparently. So I can accept that.
Well, maybe you can take us through some abstract metaphors while we meditate
man, I
now.
think I've got some pretty cool ones, actually. I'm really loving the water theme. I'm just going to quickly check the live chat before, to see if anyone's got any questions or comments.
Yeah, cool. Perfect.
Hey Santiago, thanks for joining in again, man.
Yeah, mate.
We're doing well, I think. Yeah, I'm doing well. You're doing well?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're doing really well, thank you. Thanks, Ritesh, for your presence and comments again. Really appreciate having you here, man. Hey, Carlos, thanks very much for tuning in. And hey, Donald, thanks for tuning in as well. Elliot said here as well, thanks for tuning in too, man. Action equals reaction. And yeah, that is like often very much the case. Like often the first action we take to something is just a reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning, Santiago. Nice to have you here, man. All right. So we've rambled on a bit.
We have.
And we've talked about how not accepting things kind of can create a bit of tension in our lives.
A lot of tension, in fact.
A lot of tension. And how like kind of the almost like the reason you would even bother trying to accept something is because it just seems to bring more ease, makes things easier in your life. So I want to just invite you guys to settle in and get nice and comfy. I'm going to make a couple of quick adjustments to make sure I'm really comfy. And just invite you, maybe take a big breath in, big breath out, and just relax and start to close down your eyes. You're just noticing if there's any tension anywhere. Just allow your shoulders to drop down. Let your tongue rest on the roof of your mouth or anywhere else that feels comfortable. And just notice how you're sitting or laying or standing. Just feel your body in whatever position it's in right now. And begin to follow your breath slowly in, gently out. As you drift down on the inside. And there might be sound in the background or in the room around you. Maybe your belly is making some noises. And that's okay. You can just accept them. Just accept that they are there without having to do anything about them at all. Because just noticing them will actually allow you to drift even deeper into this nice, calm, gentle meditation. And you can find ease in the knowledge that for the next few minutes, you don't need to actually do anything. Nor accept anything, coincidentally. But that anything that does feel good and right and true, that I might say, you can just welcome if it feels right to do so. And just allow yourself to come on this journey as you continue to drift deeply down on the inside. And just bring to mind the image of a single drop of water resting on a brilliant green leaf. And just watch this drop as it sits there and slowly moves, ever so slowly creeping down under the force of gravity towards the edge of the leaf. holds onto the leaf as it reaches all the way to the tip, rolling all the way to the edge of this leaf and dangling before it drops down into the river below it. And how this drop joins the river, accepting it's part of the greater whole, and just flows down, following the curves and undulating rhythms of the land over which it flows. And just notice how up ahead of this droplet, a log has fallen into the river. And watch how, as this droplet meets the log, it doesn't rail against the log's existence. It doesn't get frustrated that the log is there in its way. Even if the log is blocking most of the river, as the drop hits the log, it doesn't fight it at all. It simply flows over or under or around and continues on its way, completely unimpeded, as it accepts the log's presence on its path. And continues to flow down the river as you watch this droplet. And just notice how all of the curves and all of the turns the river takes as you flow down watching this droplet seems so natural and effortless. How easily the river flows, even when it comes up against mighty boulders, seemingly insurmountable. Yet as the water contacts it, it finds even the smallest crevice, seemingly insignificant ways to flow over or under or around these obstacles. And how as it does so, it may even create new pathways, ways that never seemed possible before. And how as it does so, it not only changes the land over which it flows effortlessly and easily, but it also brings new life to those places. And it continues. Just watch as the drop continues to flow with the river all the way down until it reaches the vast ocean, where it joins immense currents flowing all over the world, where it becomes deep sea currents, the mysteries of which we may never ever fully understand, but are there nonetheless. And how eventually this drop also becomes a wave, a huge wave that rolls and crashes and rolls again, until the drop, in a moment of spray, where it begins to dance with other drops of water floating in the atmosphere that come together and form little clouds and are then dispersed by winds. How the droplet doesn't grip or try and hold to these other water droplets. How it flows with the wind until finally it is brought together at the opportune moment with enough other water droplets to form a huge rain cloud. And from here, the water droplet can fall back down, all the way down to the earth, and land effortlessly just by following the force of gravity and the natural cycle of its flow back onto a leaf, where its skin will grip the leaf as it rolls down its length before falling once again to join the flow of yet another mighty river. And it's funny, isn't it, how by accepting the natural flow of life, by accepting the rhythms of its cycles, by accepting and flowing around its obstacles, but water shows us how those obstacles are not on the way, are not in the way, but rather are on the way. And how even something seemingly insurmountable, once accepted, can allow new life to flourish and can change the entire landscape in ways that we never might have imagined were possible. Until that water droplet eventually becomes you. A being made largely of water. And by virtue of association, contains similar capacities of acceptance and flow and ease. Slowly bringing your attention back to you. Bring your attention back to yourself now. Back to your body. And wriggle your toes and fingers as you slowly rise up like the water droplet, captured by the sunlight in a moment of spray, gently coming all the way back up, only as fast as feels safe and comfortable to do so. Slowly bringing yourself back up into your body and the room where you open your eyes. Back in the room where you began. How you doing, man?
Thanks, Jack. That was beautiful.
Thanks, man.
That was wonderful.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That was super fun.
What a journey.
Oh, man.
What a journey.
I loved that, actually. I hope you enjoyed it, but I really enjoyed that. That was great. That's one of the really fun things about doing those, actually, is that I get to go on those journeys as well. I'm very much there.
Amazing.
It's really, really fun. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that as well. See if we've got anything else here. Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks, Ritesh. I'm glad you enjoyed the ironing out troubled waters analogy. Ritesh, it's an interesting analogy. Trying to do that, it's like, because yeah, it is. It doesn't make sense, but it's often what we do. I mean, we like to think of ourselves as logical creatures, but like, really, how much sense do any of us make most of the time? Personally, me, like none, any of the time.
Just on Thursdays from 7:30.
Yeah, just on Thursdays from 7:30 p.m. till somewhere like just after 8.
Perfect. So, do we have anything to leave everyone with for this week?
We sure do. How many times have you meditated this week? How many 1-minute sessions did you get in? And how many are you going to get in this week?
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure you're keeping this as a regular practice, guys. It's really cool. It's actually like, it's so much fun. I heard a really interesting thing. I might like kind of chuck this in there now as well, because it's just come back to my mind. I was listening to just like a little talk on YouTube, I think by Alan Watts. And one of the things he was saying about meditation was, he was like, which I thought was just hilarious and like so true. It's like, if you're meditating and you're not having fun, you're not meditating. And I was like, huh, I like that a lot. And you know, it's not always going to be super easy and it's not always going to be super fun, especially if like uncomfortable stuff is happening. But just like, but this can be a lot of fun. It can be fun if you let it, and it can also be as easy as you let it be too.
So I think this week I'm going to focus on accepting that no one who watches these ever meditates ever. And we'll see if maybe the principle will work, and if I can manage to crack that one, then maybe by next week everyone's going to be masters.
Cool. I like that, man. I like that a lot.
Perfect. So I guess that's probably us for this week. Thanks so much for joining us again.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Ash. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, and we will see you with probably another really cool topic next week.
Yeah.
Definitely see you next week.
Perfect. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, guys. Much love.